Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Smack Talk Live. I am the coach along with Lone Wolf, and we are still kind of in a holding pattern with sports. So we will be talking some more NFL free agency, talk some draft, and maybe if we'll see some WWE stuff because some stuff came down, not necessarily with the WWE, but with the city of Orlando that could really make some interesting stuff. The
Well,
legal.
we can even lead off with that if you want. I mean,
Let's
well, we got a lot of football stuff to do too, but
let's start WWE because we haven't really talked too much
too
about
much
that.
about it. Right,
It's not really classified as a sport, I guess per
right,
se. It's sports entertainment, but it's
right.
interesting because the WWE had moved all their live shows
Yep.
and all their tapings to their performance center and basically their training facility. No fans. I watched some YouTube highlights of it. It really wasn't the same. You could tell that the performers weren't really the same. The same energy.
Yeah.
But it's cool that they were still doing it. But now the city of Orlando came down and is forcing them to close their performance center, and that's where
Right.
WrestleMania was going to happen. So
Right. Yep. Yep.
it's really going to make it interesting because unless they put the whole state into a lockdown, I don't
Like
know if they
complete
can.
lockdown. Right.
Yeah, I don't know if they can legally do that. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think that they can either. I think you're right. I mean, unless they have an absolute lockdown, they shouldn't be able to do that. The plan, from what I read for the WWE anyway, was for them to have zero fans and just essential personnel, and then they'd scrub everything down and they'd do everything they needed to do, and then they would just put on their show. And they were going to do it in 2 nights, and from what I read, they were going to do some fights and other things from undisclosed other locations, so they wouldn't even have all their performers in the same place.
Right.
So they're really taking a lot of precautions here. So I mean, this whole thing is kind of nuts, for them wanting to do it that way. I mean, I understand where the city's coming from, but I think that they're taking the necessary steps to make sure that they do it safely in this environment.
Yeah, I read that. I was like, oh boy. I'm like, this could be, I think, the first kind of like legal thing that comes up
Right.
with all of this because they're abiding by all the stuff they're supposed to be doing.
Right. All the rules. Yep.
And now they're saying no, you can't. But it's private property.
Yep.
That and that comes to a bigger issue. It's like we're all on lockdown basically, unless you're going out for essentials. Well, if I'm just out and about because I need to get out of the house, go for a little ride, they pull me over, ask me what I'm doing. I'm like, oh, I'm just out driving around. They could technically arrest me right now, which I don't know if that's even. I don't know if that.
Well, I don't know if they could do that yet. I mean, the way I read the safer at home, or the stay at home, depending on where you are, I don't think that it means that you can't go out at all. I mean, I still drove the other day, so nobody pulled me over or anything like that.
But I'm talking about if you just go for like a joyride.
Yeah.
Instead of
Sure.
like I went to the gas station today. Okay. They're not gonna do anything if you have a destination, but if you just go for a ride because you want to get out of the house, it's gonna be interesting here. But I think reading a lot of stuff, from around the world and stuff, they're talking about now that this might not go as long as everybody thought it was going to. So we'll see.
Right.
Because I'm sure hoping by May everything starts to open up again.
Yeah. Right.
Because
and it'll be interesting to see how this thing goes with wrestling. I mean, it's not an essential service, so for these stay-at-home orders that are being issued, it's not going to the pharmacy, taking a walk, going to the grocery store, something like that. So I don't know. I mean,
I look at it like this, though.
Right.
Like a government official, like we're praising all these, Netflix and Disney and all the other places that are, they're reducing their fees or they're like releasing movies early. Like there's even talk, The Rise of Skywalker just came out on DVD and it was already released on demand, so you can buy it online. There's talk that Disney might release it on the Disney Plus platform in the next week or two. Because
which they would never do otherwise, because they want to drive sales of all that stuff.
Right. So, I mean, so you'd think a company that's like, hey, we're going to still give people something for entertainment purposes to get their minds off of everything for a couple of days. Would be like,
and that's exactly what WrestleMania is. This whole wrestling thing is trying to do here,
Right.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I just, I think it's going to be a very interesting situation to watch. That's supposed to be this weekend. So,
well, I read something online now that they wanted to do it April 4th and 5th, and they wanted to split it up. I was just reading this maybe half an hour ago. So
they got some time to maybe possibly come to a resolution. If not, it'll be interesting, because I don't know, over the years, growing up, Vince, the McMahons are very, very business savvy and very, and everybody's like, oh, they're jerks. Oh, that's a persona they have out for the show, but they donate so much money, do so many great causes that you would think that people would be like, yeah, let's help them pull us off, instead of saying, nope, you got to close.
I agree. I mean, and like I said, they're going about it the right way. They're trying to split it up so not everybody's even in the same area at the same time. Essential personnel, giving some entertainment to those people who want to see something. It's a show, and I mean, like Rob Gronkowski is supposed to be the host. They're making a big deal out of it so they can draw in a lot of fans. And I think, like you said, right now, that's the time that people want to see something like this. You'll probably have a heck of a lot more people doing a pay-per-view for something like this, because there aren't any other sports on.
But here's the thing. It wasn't even going to be on pay-per-view. It was going to be on ESPN.
Oh, well, there you go. Even better. Yeah. Then, I mean, they're just going to, normally that stuff is pay-per-view, isn't it? I mean, that's what I thought.
Normally, but again, they even made the WWE, they have their own network. You can actually watch a lot of their content for free now.
Oh, sure. Because they want to draw more viewers. Yeah.
Yeah. Just to help people through this whole thing.
This time. Yeah. Yep.
So, it's interesting. It's interesting. So, but that's I think really well, before we get to the NFL, we have to talk about the Olympics have been postponed to at least next summer now. They're talking about.
Yes.
I mean,
it's probably the right move, just because other countries like Canada said they weren't going to send a team. Well, if you don't have a country like Canada, who has a huge team, and they're not going to send one, I mean, there's just too much uncertainty, I think, at this point.
Well, right. And I'm just hoping what happens is that they delay it, and then they say, okay, well, and we're still going to do 2024, and not say, okay, now we're set out 4 more years from this. You know what I'm saying? Is that hopefully,
I agree with,
hopefully they just say, okay, well, we only got 3 more years before the next Olympics.
Right.
Because I saw, yeah, if they are not able to hold the Olympics, it's like $2.7 billion lost
Yeah.
for Tokyo. It's like,
Right.
holy cow, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I know reading articles, a lot of the USA athletes raised concerns about going and wanted a
Mm-hmm.
delay, and so it's the right move. Again,
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what happens as they move forward, not necessarily you know when they're going to happen, because
Right.
we're pretty sure they're going to happen
They're gonna
in
have.
Tokyo.
Yeah.
They're going to do them. It's just
Right.
when's it going to happen. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens there.
Well, and I think you and I too, we talked about this. We praised the Olympics early on for not reacting and shutting them down early. And I think they
Right.
did the right thing by doing that. We both agreed on that. Now they're kind of at the time where they had to make a decision. And I think this is the right one, like we just said. But I think it's a good thing that they waited, wanted to see what was going to happen. They saw that it was spreading. They saw all these other things that needed to happen. So good choice and good decision by the Olympics to do this now as opposed to early on.
Yeah, I mean they had to make a decision.
Right.
Some people could say,
It's
well,
getting too close. Yeah.
they still have a little time. No, you got people coming from all over the world. You have
Right.
advertising that needs to be pulled, and all this stuff that needs to be changed.
Right.
You need to make the decisions sooner than later before you too close and you have programs printed and all the stuff and everything printed for 2020, and that'll be the other thing. It'll be interesting to see, because I'm assuming they have like the medals and everything already made.
Oh, sure. Right.
Are
Yeah.
they gonna just say we're calling this as the 2020 Olympics, or if they redo the
Or is it
medals?
the 2021? Yeah. No,
you
I
know,
think it's going to be weird, but I think they'll probably keep it that way and just say, hey, everybody will know it was supposed to be the 2020 Olympics, and here you go. I mean, they could reprint it, but that's a lot of lost money if you do it that way. And I don't know if you'd want to do it that way. I think I would just keep it, and everybody would just know, yep, this was supposed to be 2020. Here's your medal, even if it's 2021. I don't know. That's what I would do.
well, it'd be interesting because
Yeah.
I want to look at the Olympic merchandise. And if there's a 2020 Olympic merchandise,
Yeah.
if you can get it cheap, I would say try to get it because it could be valuable someday.
Sure. No, you make a good point.
Just because the oddity of what's going on here. So
Right.
so for those collectors, might be something you might want to look at. So
True. Yeah.
other than
So,
that,
all right.
I just read too. Major League Baseball's are talking about only having a 32 game season.
Really?
Yeah, they voted the MLB, and everybody, they've agreed to do work stoppage because of the
Sure.
situation, which is fine. But now they're reporting that they're talking about a 32 game season.
That seems a little short. I mean, wouldn't they have more time? Or when were they talking about picking it back up again where they would only do 32 games?
And I think that's what it's going to come down to is when do they start their season. They're probably looking at midsummer, but still, if you start in July, you have July, August, and September. You have 3 months. So it'll be interesting. I'm not a huge MLB fan. I follow it, but I don't. I'm not one of those people that's really intense about it.
I'm not a huge fan either, but I mean, it's interesting because I think it impacts a lot of different people out there, a lot of different fans.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I know the NBA has already talked about, their playoffs might not happen until, August. And
Sure.
they've come out and said we don't care even if it conflicts with the NFL. We're doing our playoff. We're
Sure.
at least having our postseason. We're not gonna
I
not
mean,
do it.
who wouldn't watch that in August though? I mean, let's
Right.
be honest, even if it's NFL preseason at that point, and yeah, they change the schedule and they're going to have different, whatever, we talked about that before. But NBA finals right before the NFL kicks off, I don't know.
Yeah.
That seems like it's a big draw, especially after having a sports drought for so long.
Well, that's the thing. If they all of a sudden have, say they say come June we're going to start the playoffs mid-June, people are going
Yeah.
to be ecstatic because
Oh, yeah.
besides training camps,
Right.
depending on what Major League Baseball does, there's not really
Right.
much in the summer.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean,
So
baseball is during summer, but, that's the long, drawn out part of baseball where you've got a lot of people going to games or you have diehards who follow it closely. But there's so many games that it's not really ramping up at that point. So, yeah, that would be – and no Olympics. So
right,
that would
no
be a
Olympics.
time when, man, yeah, the NBA, if they did that, they would capture the market during the summer, I think, personally.
Yeah, so not a lot of sports news, but it just a lot of interesting things that as we start to work towards hopefully normal life again.
Right.
Things are going to start happening here in I think the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
From everything that I'm hearing and reading and stuff, that it's going to start to kind of curtail quicker than they originally thought. So, which is a good thing for everybody, because to be honest, I teach. We're teaching from home. I'd rather be at the school. Being cooped up in my house all day.
Yeah.
Oh, it might be easy. It's not as much fun. So,
Right.
But hey, you do what you got to do, and
Yep. Here we are.
we are. I'm just hoping this is done by June, because I am set to still go to Vegas.
So am I, man. So am I.
And right now, I texted you earlier. I haven't booked my flight yet, because I was waiting because
Right.
it was at 100, like 150. Then all of a sudden dropped to 130. And I was like, I'll wait a little bit. If it goes back up, no big deal. Then all of a sudden it was down to like 110. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
hey, there we go. And I checked today. I mean, if I want to go late at night,
Sure.
going out there,
$100.
I can get it for like $60.
Wow.
And then if I want to go midday, it's like 80. So I was like, I'm gonna wait another week or so. It might as all this stuff really declines, it might be pretty cheap. So
sure. So hopefully by June we're in the clear in terms of doing that, because a lot of those places are even closed. Those casinos and stuff are all closed.
Right, but they're looking at reopening, here in I think mid to end of April. I think you're going to start seeing stuff opening back up a little bit out there.
Sure.
That's a pure tourist town, and I think
it is. Yeah.
And I think the governor there knows that, hey, we can't stay closed forever.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely see how this stuff all pans out.
Yeah.
But let's go
to the NFL.
Into the NFL. Not too much in the way of signings, I guess.
Not really.
That I really saw. Xavier Rhodes is signed with the Colts.
Yep.
So the Vikings have basically lost their entire secondary.
Right.
Yeah.
And some defensive linemen. I mean,
yeah,
they're in a world of hurt, in my opinion.
they're hurting.
Yeah. Now, I
Let's
mean,
talk.
here's the thing, too. I will say they also they went ahead and I think that they signed. I don't know, who did they sign. Oh no, I don't think they did sign anybody. I thought they signed somebody to replenish their stock, but I don't think they did because they don't really have cap space. Oh no, they did. They signed Michael
Yeah,
Pierce from Baltimore.
yeah. I was gonna say that. I know they signed somebody. I read
Okay.
something, but
Yeah.
it wasn't
But I
like one
don't
of
I don't
those
really
like.
think that makes them that much better on D. I think that's just kind of plugging a hole and hoping for the best. So
So
anyway, so
I'd say I was looking at it, and they had, just after everything going on, they had the post free agency rankings,
yeah,
and they had the Vikings down there a bit. They were the closest team to the Packers, who were actually sitting at number 5 for the power rankings right now,
okay,
which kind of surprised me.
yeah,
A little bit because they didn't really do much for free agency.
right,
And we'll talk about their latest signing here in a little bit.
right.
But looking at it, they had some of the I can't find the article now, but it was they talked about like some of the most overpaid free agents of this free agency
Oh, sure, right,
season.
yeah,
And it was funny because I talked to a couple people that that are diehard Pack fans, and they weren't too upset
right,
with Jimmy Graham leaving, but they were really upset that they let Blake Martinez go. But Jimmy Graham and Blake
right.
Martinez by position,
Were the most
Jimmy
overpaid?
Graham was the most overpaid tight end,
Well, yeah,
and Blake Martinez was the most overpaid inside linebacker.
linebacker. Yeah,
And I agree.
I mean,
I don't.
yeah,
You're a middle linebacker. You should lead your team in tackles.
right.
If you don't lead your team in tackles, there's something wrong.
Well, let's just put this out there since we're talking about these two guys, right? Jimmy Graham is past his prime. He's not worth that kind of contract, bottom line. And Blake Martinez is in a different category. He's a good player. I don't think we're disputing that, but he's not worth the kind of money that he got in free agency. That's the difference between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. He's not. He is not a top tier middle linebacker in the NFL.
No.
He's a quality middle linebacker.
Yep.
Not a great middle linebacker. But
I like him as a player. I mean,
yeah.
I would have loved for him to stay, but he wanted too much money, and business wise, it didn't make sense to do that.
Right. Exactly. So that leads us to the Packers signing. I'll let you talk about this one because I think you're a little bit more excited than I am about it.
Yep.
So why don't you go ahead and take that away?
Well, and here's the reason that I like this with Funchess so much is that Carolina, to me, never really panned out for him. And I think sometimes what you see is you get a guy who's a really high draft pick and he goes to a team and it doesn't really work out, but he has the talent to possibly succeed elsewhere because he maybe isn't in the right system, whatever the case may be. He's got some talent. And I like this signing with Funchess because now you have a guy who he's been in Carolina for a little while. You're getting him on the cheap. I mean, you're not paying too much for a guy like this. And if he pans out, then it's great. And I think he's a big body receiver. I know he doesn't stretch the field. That's something you said. But Jimmy Graham was supposed to be that guy last year and the year before, right? He was supposed to be a big body. They could throw it to him in the end zone. He didn't do anything. Now, I think Funchess can still get separation from DBs. So that's another reason I like this signing because, especially in the red zone, he'll be a huge target for Aaron Rodgers. They may not have to worry about tight end as much as long as they get that burner receiver who can stretch the field. And then you have Devontae Adams and Funchess making plays, and then maybe have little Allen Lazard. I mean, it gives them another option on offense. I like this signing because of how they went about it. You got a quality guy. And if it doesn't pan out, guess what? You're not out a whole bunch of money. I mean, it's not like they paid him, $40 million a year to walk in the door. They paid him a low amount of money. So if it doesn't pan out, okay, fine. You're still going to probably draft a receiver anyway at some point, and see if that pans out. So no matter what.
Right. So. And that was my thought as I was, digesting it. I was like, okay, so tall, big, decent speed guy. Obviously he'll be a slot receiver. They're not going to put him on the edge. They'll have him run, in the middle of the field, hopefully. My question is, I'm wondering if they'll try to put him down in that 3-point stance. And because now they do a lot more zone and the shotgun pistol stuff, him try to seal the edge on any outside zone stuff. If he could do that, then I think their need of a premier tight end goes down, at least for now.
Sure,
I still think they address that need here, either via draft or via a veteran cut after the draft. But it'll be interesting to see. They did at least sign a proven receiver in the NFL. Right. He's not that all-star, but I don't know if they really need an all-star. They need a guy that the other teams have to cover, so
Who's
they
reliable.
Can't just double team Devontae Adams all the time, and then all of a sudden, okay, we have Jimmy from the University of whatever catching passes. So it'll be interesting to see how it works out for them. I know there's still some rumors out there. Some other guys are looking at trying to get eventually, but I think at the same time, I think they're at this point, you almost wait to go to the draft a need, and then build through free agent cuts. And we'll see from there. The only other free agency thing I want to talk about here before we start talking draft is Cam Newton. That was really probably the biggest news breaker. Cam Newton released by the Panthers. I guess, like you said, not overall surprising because they signed Teddy Bridgewater. Right. But the question is, where does he go? What team, when you look at the landscape of teams, what team out there does he fit in for? Where does he fit? We have a lot of quarterbacks on the market right now that don't have homes.
Yeah.
And there are some teams that could use a quarterback.
Yes, definitely.
Obviously the Patriots need a quarterback. If you're going into the season with Brian Hoyer or Stedman, you're going. I
don't care how high they are on Stidman, whatever. I mean, come on, let's get real here, people.
I saw a prank YouTube video of somebody playing Bill Belichick calling Andrew Luck, which wouldn't surprise me. I mean.
Right? I mean, right. Yeah. Hey, Andrew, I get it. You retired, but we could use you.
Just quick go looking at teams. AFC East besides the Patriots, I think all those teams, the Dolphins could use a quarterback, but I think they're in the mindset of drafting a guy.
Yeah.
Look at the AFC North, the Bengals, I think they want to draft a guy. Texans, Titans, Colts, they all have a guy. Indianapolis will probably draft somebody to sit behind Phillip Rivers. I would assume. The Jaguars could use him, but I don't. I think they're in total rebuild. I don't think he'd go there.
No, but they could use a quarterback, and I don't know if that ends up being a spot for one of these free agent guys like Winston or Cam Newton to end up in Jacksonville.
Yeah, he might, but I don't think he'll want to go there.
Sure.
I think he wants to go somewhere to try to win, and Jacksonville is light years away from
Oh,
winning.
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So, Chiefs, no. Broncos, I don't think they do. I think they're happy with their young guys there. The Raiders do not. The Chargers could be a landing spot. They need a quarterback. They're talking about how everybody's really high on them again. This off season, we'll see. I mean, they've
made some moves. They've made some good moves. Yeah.
I'm going to pump my brakes there because they were supposed to be really good last year.
I know,
and then they go 5-11. So you got to prove it to me. Because
I'm in the same boat with you.
When you do that,
you've made some good moves, but it doesn't necessarily translate into winning football games.
When you do that, when you have a good year, and then you go back as far as they did, I'm not going to buy stock in you. You got to do it for multiple years in a row for me to consider you a viable team to compete for the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
Eagles no, Cowboys no, Giants. I mean, they could use them, but I think they're happy with Jones. The Redskins probably wouldn't sign him.
I don't know. I mean, they have Haskins, but do you feel like Ron Rivera is on board with Haskins? And he wasn't there.
I think they're going to try to trade Haskins and draft a new quarterback again this year. I think that's a cluster there in Washington. Green Bay,
but
no.
Do you
Minnesota.
think bringing in a veteran guy behind whoever you draft would be a good idea? Or
again, if I'm Cam Newton, I don't go there because it's a horrible situation.
It would be. Yeah, I agree.
He only has so much time left because of all the injuries he's had. He can't go to a situation where he's going to get pummeled. And I
agree. But do you think Winston would go somewhere like that?
No.
Winston's going to be the guy, but
Winston's going to take a job wherever he can get a job. But if I was Washington, I would say no. We're going to be bad. I'm not going to be bad with a guy that's washed up. I'm going to ride with a young guy. Green Bay, no. Minnesota, no. Chicago, they're not going to bring anybody else in.
Well, they had Foles. They're not going to bring anybody else in, no. And then Detroit.
Detroit, they're not going to bring anybody in. They got
Stafford. They're fine. Yep.
New Orleans, no. Atlanta, no. Tampa Bay, no. Carolina, obviously, no. San Francisco, no. Seattle, no. The Rams, no. The Cardinals, no. So you got two teams.
Right.
Two teams.
Did you say the Browns?
No, I did not say the Browns. I don't think the Browns.
You don't think they move on from Mayfield or try to give him some competition?
I don't think they'll bring in Cam Newton because he'll want too much money.
Sure.
That's the problem. I think he wants too much money. So I think it'll either be the Chargers or the Patriots.
If anybody goes for it.
If anybody. And if if he's not signed by training camp, he may take a 1-year deal as a backup somewhere just to get to be in the league. But if he wants to be a starter, you call the Chargers, call the Patriots, and see, because they do not have a starter right now. And Cam Newton is the best quarterback on the market right now.
Right. Better than Winston.
I mean, he's not. I don't believe he's great, but he's the best quarterback available on the market. If you want to try to win,
an interesting marriage for either one of those teams when you look at it too, because the Patriots are good, and that could change the face of things. If they roll into the season with Stidham and Brian Hoyer, we both agree that they're taking a big step back. Not necessarily out of the playoffs. Maybe it depends on how
No,
things go.
if the
They'll
Patriots
probably
don't
be in the
get
playoffs still.
if the Patriots don't get a quarterback, they're not making the playoffs. I'll tell you that right
Yeah.
now. The
Okay. Yeah.
Steelers are getting Ben Roethlisberger back. They were 8-8
Right.
without him. They're going to be
Right.
in the playoff hunt. The Ravens are going to be in the playoff hunt. The Texans,
Sure,
the Titans, the
sure.
Colts are all going to be in the playoff hunt. The
Sure.
Chiefs and the
again,
Raiders
yep.
are going to be
The
in the playoff
Raiders.
hunt.
Yeah.
The Bills.
Yeah. And then in their
too
own
many
division, the
teams.
Bills, and yeah.
There's too many teams there for them
Sure.
to have a below average quarterback and try to make the playoffs.
Sure.
It's just not. It's not going to.
Oh yeah.
happen.
Okay. Yeah. No, you make a good point. Yep.
So I love Bill Belichick as a coach, but
Right.
if you don't have a quarterback in the NFL, you
just don't.
no
Yeah.
good.
You don't get anywhere.
You're no good. So
you can still run the football and do kind of what Tennessee did, but you need a good quarterback, not a below average quarterback.
But the Patriots can't run the football.
No, I know. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's true. Yeah.
so they've never really been able to really have a great running game. It's a running back by committee, but I think
right.
they're going to lose. They lost some people in their line. I think they're in kind of a mini rebuild mode here. So we'll see what happens.
Now I do have one other free agent that I did want to talk about. So I don't know if you wanted to move on to the draft. There's one that I wanted to talk about, and I want to get your opinion on.
Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. This one I think is near and dear to a team that you loved last year, and you've been high on them. So it's with the Titans, and he was with the Titans. Right now, Logan Ryan is still out there.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that? He hasn't been signed. He's been a really good player, so people have secondary needs all over the league. What are your thoughts on him still being unsigned?
Well, again, I think right now, you can talk about Logan Ryan. You can talk about any of these guys that haven't signed yet. I think from now to the draft, you might get a handful of guys that sign for like 1 or 2 year deals. Because you're no longer at the phase of free agency where you're going to get a 3 to 4 year deal. It's a short-term deal. It's a prove-it contract. You prove that you can still be the player that you were to us, and we'll give you a longer-term contract.
Sure.
Obviously there's some red flags out there for some reason with him, or he's just asking for way too much money.
Too much money, yeah.
And that's the thing. Guys are trying to cash in. Whenever they hit the market, they want to try to cash in, but you can cash yourself right out of the market by asking too much. You have to be realistic with what you're asking for. And depending on what, if you want to be on a competitive team, or if you just want money, really determines your market value. Because if you just want money, you go to your agent and say, you find a team with lots of cap room and go get me a deal. I don't care how good they are.
Right.
If you want to win, you say, I don't care how much they're going to pay me. Get me on one of the teams that can win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know what his thought process is.
We don't. We really don't.
But that's I think that's kind of probably what the hang up is he's probably asking for too much money.
Sure.
And he's either gonna have to settle, or like I said, the draft's gonna come and go, and then a team's gonna come in and say, hey, we'll give you a 2-year deal at this price.
Sure, right. And take it or leave it. That's where you're at.
And if after the first year you do really well for us, we'll renegotiate. That kind of situation.
I think he's still a good player, and I think that he'll get a deal. But that may be the case. He might be asking for too much, and that's why he's sitting out there yet. Okay, that's kind of the thought I had, but I wanted to see where you were at with that in particular.
Yeah, so. And again, a lot of it is that guys are asking for too much money. I think that's why it took so long for
Robbie Anderson.
Robbie Anderson to sign, and some of these other guys that signed this week. For small,
I think Robbie Anderson thought he was better than he was.
Right. For smaller contracts than what they went into free agency looking for.
Right.
So, it's a wait and see type of thing. It'll be free agency. I think you'll have a little frenzy after the draft.
Right.
With street free agents, and see what happens there. So, it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
To say the least. So, so anything else with free agency wise that you want?
I don't have anything else I wanted to touch on. There's a lot of different things you could do or talk about getting into the nitty gritty of it, but I don't really have. We can talk about that more later. I think I'm good as far as that goes. I think we touched on a lot of the main storylines. So,
all right. So the NFL draft. So what we're going to do, we're going to sort of do it like we did with the free agency preview. We're going to go division by division, talk about each team, talk about what we feel their needs are. And then when we get close to the draft, we will do our mock draft of the first round for sure. Maybe do the first and second round, depending on how much time, how many shows we have before the draft goes. So that's kind of how we're going to handle this whole thing.
Sure. So cool.
Again, we started with the North divisions for our free agency preview.
Yep.
So let's start there for our kind of our draft.
Sure.
Preview. We'll start with the AFC North this time. We started with the NFC North last time, I believe.
Okay. Yes, we did. Yeah. So let's start with the AFC North.
We'll start looking at the Cincinnati Bengals / Bungles. So many areas of need. I know they did make some moves. They tagged AJ Green for some odd reason.
Yes.
I don't.
They picked up a couple of corners in free agency. I was looking at Sport Track, and I saw that they had went out there and they picked up some people. So they actually picked up quite a few. So on defense, they got DJ Reader from Houston. They went out and they got Trey Waynes from Minnesota, one of those people that left Minnesota. They went out and
they also they got Alexander from Minnesota also.
Yep, and they got Von Bell as a safety from New Orleans. So they really, it looks to me like, and this is one of the things I wanted to touch on with them, is they really went out in free agency and did quite a bit. They signed Xavier Su'a-Filo from Dallas. That's on the offensive side, but they went out and they addressed some needs. It looks like particularly on the defensive side of the football. In the secondary, quite a bit. They had quite a few moves there. So I don't think Cincinnati goes that route in the draft early on with all the free agent activity that they've had. Obviously, we'll talk about the first pick. Everybody thinks that they're just going to take Joe Burrow, whatever, and that's the route they're going to go. But there's a lot of other team needs that they have. My feeling for Cincinnati, because of all that free agent activity, is, okay, they pick up Burrow, but you got to protect the guy. They need offensive line help for sure.
Right. Now, and I'm just, if I'm understanding, is Andy Dalton still on their roster, correct?
I believe so. Yeah, I didn't think he was a free agent.
So they don't necessarily need to take Joe Burrow. And one thing I saw earlier this week is that a projection was possibly Miami trading up to the number one slot with the Bengals.
Sure.
And so here's the thing. They put a lot of money into their defense. They tagged AJ Green.
Right.
My thought process here is that they may not be moving on from Andy Dalton like everybody thinks they are.
Sure.
Um,
Okay.
you know, because if you're gonna do that, why would you go and spend this much money in free agency?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
And there's a
saying?
couple other free agents. I'm still going down the list. There's a couple more free agents that they've picked up, secondary wise and linebacking wise. So
So so
okay,
that's
interesting
my,
thought. Yeah.
so it's gonna be interesting. Obviously, I still think they do need to get a quarterback. They got Joe Mixon there. Think they need to
Right.
get um a receiver to eventually, be that number one guy, because AJ Green, 10 years in the league already. So I think they need to find somebody to replace him eventually. So there's a lot of ways they could go, but it would not shock me if they traded out of the number one spot. Because if they plan on sticking with Andy Dalton for another
Right.
year or two.
And that's an interesting point because it looks like he's under contract for another year, and then he would become a free agent. So he is still with the Bengals, is what it looks like to me. Yes,
And you'd think if they were going to move on from him, they would have already. They would have released him.
but would it make sense to draft Burrow and then have Andy Dalton be your quarterback? Let the guy sit, let the guy learn, and then come in.
This day and age, if you're the number one overall pick, you don't sit.
Yeah.
If you're the overall number one pick at quarterback, you do not sit.
You don't. Yeah,
that's the way because you have,
I know,
3 or 4 years guaranteed with that quarterback. That's it.
Right.
And then you have to decide whether to pay him big money or let him walk.
Like Dak Prescott
Correct. So you don't let that guy sit. It's the NFL's different that way. Now, if you're talking about the end of the first round, second round, sure, go ahead. Draft a guy, let him sit. But if you're in that,
you're right.
Top 10, if you draft a quarterback top 10, you play him. You do not. You don't plan on having him sit and learn, especially from a guy like Andy Dalton. I don't think he's a quarterback.
Yeah, he's probably not the best. Yeah. Now,
So,
do you see him potentially ending up somewhere else, like the Patriots or the Chargers, because they're trying to offload him and they do want Burrow still, and then they maybe make a trade, they get some more draft picks so they can really load up on draft day, with another team that might need that? Or do you think that those teams are just going to draft a quarterback and not worry about it? I mean, I don't see the Patriots doing something like that, but what about the Chargers? Is that a possibility?
To be honest, if I was a team looking for a quarterback, I would not give a draft pick for Andy Dalton.
Sure.
Knowing that if the Bengals do draft a quarterback, he's probably going to get cut.
Sure.
And I'd make
but there's
a
huge cap. There's a huge cap issue if they do that, though.
Right, and that's why I think they'll keep him and just hold off for a year, or draft a quarterback in the second or third round, and let him sit for that year, instead of taking Burrows at the overall number one, when you can swap first rounds, probably pick up a late first round or early second round pick in the process. But if I'm like the Chargers or the Patriots, I'm not going to go and try to trade for Dalton. I'd try to sign Cam Newton over Dalton, because Cam Newton is by far more talented than Andy Dalton, and I would rather go into Sundays with Cam Newton over Andy Dalton any day. So, but they have a lot of options with that overall number one pick, and once we get into the actual, our mock draft,
what they're gonna do,
we'll talk about how we're gonna do that off the air. But I think it'll be fun.
So do you think they go Burrow, or do you really honestly think there's a good chance they don't?
I mean, if your betting odds is that they're going to take Joe Burrow,
right?
if I'm sitting there in Cincinnati right now, and
Right.
I know if I can't trade Andy Dalton
Yeah.
and clear that cap space and not have
Right.
big cap hit, if I cut him, I ride
Yeah.
with him. I
Sure.
ride with them. I find a trade partner, trade back. Maybe I'm not sure where the Dolphins are at.
They're at 5, I think.
You could still get a top quality quarterback at number
Yeah,
5. Pick up
you could.
extra
You
draft
could get
picks,
Herbert or whatever from
and
Oregon. Justin
and
Herbert.
then
Yeah.
then it'd be easier to justify sitting them.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
but Joe Burrow, or if you take somebody with number 1 overall, you have to play him. It's just
Sure. You're almost warming me to this idea, because if you said to Miami or somebody else who really wanted a quarterback they were going to draft that, hey, we'll give you the number 1 pick. Miami's got some picks. They could do something like that. And then why would they say no? They were so active in free agency. They go up, they get a guy like Joe Burrow, who people are saying is pretty surefire. I mean, I won't say anybody is surefire, but then you bounce back and you get some more.
Joe Burrow is probably the most ready quarterback
out of this draft,
in the draft class. So
yeah.
So I mean, I know if I would be making that call, I would.
Sure.
I would try to trade Andy Dalton for something.
Sure.
A, clear cap space. B, you're in position to hopefully draft your next franchise quarterback for the next 10 to 15 years.
Right.
But if I can't do that, I'm not going to draft him. If I can have somebody to pick up extra draft picks, still get a quality quarterback that I could sit for a year and justify it, and then build to the future there. So, but again, we'll wait and see on there. But let's move to the Cleveland Browns. Now, you look at them and you think, oh, geez, don't really, their roster's pretty solid. I guess and if there are any Browns fans that listen to this, they're going to be like, what are you talking about? 2 things I'd be doing on draft day. I would be trading Odell Beckham Jr. for something. Get him out of my locker room. He is a cancer, I think, unless he's in the right situation.
Right.
And then,
which he really hasn't been almost his whole career.
Right. And then with hopefully, you can get a late first or an early second. You're 6-10 and you had talent on the roster. I know you're bringing in yet another new coach. But you got a lot of talent there. And just again, this is me. I'm sitting at it. If I'm the brand new GM taking over this roster, I'd be trading Odell Beckham Jr. Try to get the best draft pick I can get, because it'd probably be a team late in the first round that would want that guy, because it'd be a team that is on the cusp of winning.
And they want a really good player at a skill position. Yeah.
So get that, and then maybe package that pick with my first round pick, move up and take a quarterback, because I'm not sold on Baker Mayfield. He's better than Johnny Manziel, but I think he's got too much of that same type of mentality. He's always got that, people don't think I'm any good, blah, blah, blah. It's like, just shut your mouth and play the game.
Right.
Shut your mouth and play the game. He can't shut his mouth. He's always got to have a comeback. So that's what I would do. I think they are talented throughout their roster, though. They got Austin Hooper now at tight end. They could maybe use some line help, just to solidify that line. But their defense is stacked. I love their defense. But again,
I think you're right. I mean, I think they could use another person on the line. I was reading something. They signed Conklin, obviously, but it depends on where you put him in. And I still think that they need somebody that you should tap into that. You should get another offensive lineman to really solidify everything. With Treader and Bitonio, and you sign Conklin, I think you need to add somebody on that line to really solidify it. And not only that, for some depth. We both think Mayfield is suspect, and he's not the best quarterback, and he's probably not really the quarterback of the future for you. We're a lot more down on him than a lot of other people are. But if you're going to try and win with him, which the Browns, it seems, are going to do, then you got to make sure he's in the best position possible, because he threw a lot of interceptions last year. And some of that was because the offensive line broke down, but some of it was just bad decisions by him. So, yeah, I think you add something there. And they did bring in a couple of safeties on the defensive side. I agree with you. I think their defense is actually pretty good. They could use another safety, I think, in the draft. I think they need another linebacker too, though. Because
which team can't use more linebackers?
Well, I'm just saying. I think they do need. Yeah, you're right. No, you're right. But I think they need somebody who can cover. That's really one of the things I think they were weak against last year, and I think they needed to be able to cover over the middle. You need a linebacker that can do that.
Again, they're another team that I think any team that has a quarterback question, I think is always interesting on draft day.
Right.
So moving to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
A team that, everybody's kind of, I think everybody's unsure of, to be honest, because they were able to go 8-8 without Big Ben. He's coming back. Their defense, it wasn't as good as it has been in the past. They do have a few really good players on defense.
Their defense was pretty good, though. I mean, especially in the mostly second half of the season, they really came on.
And where they're drafting, they're in the middle of the pack in the draft in the first round. What do you think they need or may target? In the draft,
it's going to be, this is one of those teams that's kind of hard to say when that pick comes around, who or what position they're exactly going to go for. I think they need a receiver. They have some younger guys that were interesting that developed last year. They've got, Juju, but I think you need another weapon for Ben. Because they're kind of in a position where once Ben is gone, you've got to decide what you're going to do at quarterback. And they're kind of like a win now, situation, right? Win with Ben. So get him another weapon, get him another receiver. That's a possibility. They need some offensive line depth, but they're not going to draft that in the first round. There's really, to me, that doesn't seem like they would do that. They could go for somebody on defense, but I really don't know that they would in the first round.
I'm looking at the draft. First round, they do not have a first round pick.
Okay.
That went to Miami, probably in a trade somewhere. So knowing that,
yeah.
What do you think they might do there?
I would say, personally, I think you I would say you try to target a receiver. That's what I would say. I'm looking now. They have pick 49. You can definitely find somebody who's a quality receiver at pick 49. There's no question. And I think you'll have, because of how deep this receiver class is, you'll have somebody there. And I think that's the route they're going to go at pick 49. That's what I would do. That's what I would say.
So again, and for anybody that listens, I always look at it from the GM perspective, looking at my long term sustainability of my roster
right.
and my team. Yep. Looking at my roster, we are, we bring in a tight end, Ebron at tight end,
Yep.
to help out there. We get Big Ben back. And with Juju, I think Juju is kind of like Devontae Adams' situation in Green Bay, where you might try to, it'd be awesome to have a second stud receiver, but at the same time, if I'm encouraged with my young guys and their development from last year without Big Ben, do we try to let them develop with Big Ben a little bit? And if I'm sitting in the second round, and depending on how the draft falls and who would be available, I might consider, if available, taking a quarterback.
Okay.
Because Big Ben has maybe 2 years left. He can say he's going to play, whatever. He's kind of like Dan Marino at the end of Marino's career, where Marino, all he could do was sit in the pocket. He couldn't really move very well, and that's why he kept getting hurt. So now, if there's not a guy there, then you look at a quarterback or a receiver, maybe some defensive depth. Because
like on the line, I would say,
or a corner. Because Pittsburgh's always been defined by their defense, and though it was okay last year, I don't think it was at the level that everybody was used to seeing.
It was pretty good, but I would say it wasn't elite.
When you go play Pittsburgh right now, you're not fearing how are we going to score points. It's okay. Our offense has to just put up this many points because we know we can get some points on them. So that'll move us to the division champion, Baltimore Ravens.
Yep.
Obviously we know what they have there. And where do you see them possibly going? Again, I don't think they have a first round. Oh, they have picked 28 in the first round. Where do you see them possibly targeting in the first round of the draft?
Well, I think that they need maybe another dynamic playmaker on defense, and that can be up front, which is a possibility at pick 28. But they may also need to go with somebody in the secondary. They do have Jimmy Smith coming back, and he's savvy and he's good, but he's 32 years old. So you might want to start thinking about, and they're deep there. I understand that, but you might want to think about grabbing somebody who would be a true dynamic player to go forward. But I would say that, they're probably going to go. I don't think that they're going to necessarily go with receiver. They've talked about that. Baltimore's offense wasn't really set up that way. I don't think they necessarily need that big body receiver or even another speedster or just any receiver. I don't think they go receiver. I think that you could either go for They're either going to go for an offensive lineman, I think, or they're going to go for a playmaker on defense. And if they have a playmaker on defense, whether that's, I don't think it's a linebacker. I think it's either up front or a corner. That's who they're going to target. I don't think they'll go with an offensive lineman because at 28, you probably don't want to go offensive line. And I think you want to make sure that, you obviously Lamar Jackson's still young. You worry less about putting a guy up front to keep him upright than you do with somebody like a Roethlisberger that we were just talking about. And I think they go defense in their first pick at 28.
Yeah, I could see them, solidifying the defense. I could see them though. I guess I'm a little more on the. I could see them possibly go receiver.
Sure.
Because if you looked at the divisional playoff game, what was their biggest problem? Catching the ball.
Yeah.
They had guys that could get downfield but couldn't get open.
Sure.
So I think they're going to look for that slot type receiver guy, the big body guy that can just find an opening maybe 10 to 15 yards down the field and make that catch and not worry about getting hit for Lamar Jackson to dump the ball off to. Either that or possibly upgrade the tight end. I thought they had too many drops in the playoff game at the tight end position because there were multiple times where he was wide open and Lamar put it on him and he dropped the ball. You can't do that. You have to be the quarterback safety valve. And if you can't do that, then it is time to upgrade that position. So I think either tight end or wide receiver, but wouldn't surprise me if they went defense to add depth because I still strongly believe if you have a good defense, you can win the Super Bowl. So
sure. I just get the feeling that at 28, and this is just I'm just kind of spitballing about this. I kind of feel like maybe you'll get that receiver at that point that you're looking for, but you might be able to wait until pick 55 or 60, which they both also have. And you might be able to go, that route and get a receiver at that point because all those top tier guys by 28 maybe are off the board. And then you can wait a little while longer, Yeah,
and again, it's a receiver-rich draft.
Right.
Right now, I read that there's some tight ends flying up the draft board. So, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if some tight ends came off the board late in that first round. If teams, that are picking late in the first round don't decide to trade out. Into the second round and pick up more picks. So again, we'll go over all that scenario in a couple of weeks here. Once we know exactly when the draft is going to be, because there's discussion now that may delay it because the teams can't meet with draft prospects in person. So teams are asking for a little delay, possibly.
Right.
So we'll figure that out. So we have about 20 minutes, so we can get through the NFC North, our hometown division.
Sure, we could do that.
We will start with the Detroit Lions. Yeah. Again, I'm always at a loss for words with the Lions because with everything that's come out the last couple of weeks with, Slay saying they don't respect.
The coach. Yeah.
The coach, things like that. He can't be the only guy thinking that.
No, not at all.
So it's going to be very interesting to see how this whole thing works out. They did sign some guys. I still think, they have Karen Johnson at running back. I still think they need a running back. They don't have like a guy
they just
there.
Don't have, yeah.
I think, receiver wise, they probably could use another receiver. They have Kenny Galladay. They have Danny Amendola, who is getting up there. But they don't have really anybody there that really scares you. They could use a tight end. I think offensively, they could use just about anything. Defensively, they're a little bit better. I think it was a smart move getting, trading Slay and getting, what they could for him. Where do you see them going? I mean, it's kind of one of those things where you can't kind of go wrong with whatever they pick unless they pick like a kicker in the first round.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
I don't even think you could be mad if they took a quarterback in the first round because Stafford's 12 years in.
Right.
So, it's not like he's a spring chicken anymore.
Right. The money's not on that. I mean, everybody's been saying that they'll take Okudah at number 3 as a corner because, he let Slay walk. And even though they let a bunch of guys go on the defensive line, they have some guys who can fill in and some people who they replace them with in free agency, like Jamie Collins and what have you. And so, I mean, that's a possibility is for them to bring him in. That's most likely what will happen. But, this defense isn't as terrible as people think. Like we were just talking about, could they go receiver at number 3? And if they did, who would be their best guy? I mean, yes, okay, an offensive line, absolutely, they need to address that. They have a pick at 35, though, but I don't know. It maybe be a little too flashy to go to a receiver at number 3. And that's not what the money is on right now. Everybody's saying that they're going to pick a corner, and that's, what they're going to do. And they can't go wrong there, but it'd be kind of a splashy thing to go that route. I don't know. There's just too many needs on this team. They're just kind of, it feels to me like no matter who they pick, they're still under Patricia and they're still going to be bad. And then they're going to have to figure it out again next year anyway when house cleaning happens again.
Well, and again, this is where, I'm looking at it from a GM perspective. Sure, I'm looking at it as, I have to make strides with this roster, whether or not we decide to keep Patricia after this year or not.
Right. That's true. Yep. Because you assume you're going to be in town even though he leaves.
Possibly. We were both they're both brought in Patricia because the GM had connections with New England and he knew Patricia. So I think if they clean house, they're both gone unless the ownership is like, hey, we got a talented roster. And Patricia just stinks as a head coach.
Sure.
But again, I'm looking at it as we have so many needs. I am trading the number 3 pick. I am trading
I wasn't even thinking about that. Yeah.
I am trading down, and I don't care if it's out of the top 10. If I can get like 2-3 picks, swap first round picks and pick up 2 picks, that's what I would do because I need to infuse this roster with some talent. It's just, I mean,
it's not, that makes the most sense because it's not just one player they need. They need a lot more than that. So if they were able to get a bunch of picks for it, yeah, I agree. That's a good point.
So that's what I look at, where I look at it as, and I think that's the best solution for them.
Sure.
Will they do it? We will have to wait and see for our draft preview or our mock draft. So let's move to the Chicago Bears. Um, you know, again, looking at and thinking about their roster defensively, I think they're pretty solid. I don't, they might want to get a guy for some depth. But I don't know if they need to build that depth early in the draft. Because I think they're pretty solid throughout their entire defense. They need to get some more weapons on offense. I'm not a big fan of the Jimmy Graham signing.
No.
You got a decent running back.
A couple of them, actually. Depending on how you scheme it, but
I think they could use probably another playmaker and probably some offensive line help, because I don't care who they have at quarterback, if it's Foles or Trubisky. Well, then they don't have a first round draft pick.
No, they don't.
They traded that to the Raiders. So you're looking
at 43, I think.
You're looking all the way back into the second round, which would again land us in that that wide receiver range, which I think kind of makes sense for them. I still think, I don't care how good their roster is, they are so poor at the quarterback slot that it's not going to matter. Their defense may be able to get them into the playoffs, but they're not going to win the Super Bowl with their current quarterback situation. What are your thoughts for the Bears? The Bears.
Yeah. The Bears. Yeah. I think they let Floyd walk, and I think they signed somebody else on the defensive line. I think that they let HaHa Clinton Dix go and Prince Amukamara go. So I think they're going to need a corner / safety in one of those two spots. Their defense is pretty good, and they have some dynamic playmakers on the defense. So I think you're right. For the most part, their defense is probably fine. At that 43 or 50 spot, I could see them picking up a DB there. But because they did pick up Artie Burns in free agency. Jimmy Graham, to me, is, I'm just going to be out and say it. He's trash. And maybe that's because we got burned by him in Green Bay, but he's at the end of his career. They overpaid him. He's not going to do anything in Chicago. You can't have a guy come in after playing with a Hall of Fame quarterback, and then he goes and he plays with two guys who you just said you have no trust in when it comes to this situation, and think he's going to be better. So that's horrible. They absolutely need another receiver, because they have Allen Robinson, but they really need a dynamic playmaker. Running back wise, it just didn't really work last year. You got Montgomery, you got Cohen. They have some potential there, but they absolutely need another playmaker for whoever is at quarterback. I don't know who it's going to be, but again, like you said, if you're looking at this from a future standpoint and you're looking at it from a GM standpoint, you put another weapon out there in front of your quarterback and you say, okay, we're giving you options. And if you can't do it as the quarterback, well, then I guess, you're moving on. At that point, then you really know this guy sucks. If you put out another really good receiver and this guy just can't make it happen, then you know he's not your guy. And you built for the future because you got a good receiver and another corner. But, that's kind of the feeling I get is corner receiver in those two picks.
It's, again, to be honest, if the Trubisky thing doesn't work out, you're going to see a GM change in Chicago, because he tied himself to Trubisky by trading up to draft him and passing up on Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
That's just that means that's a poor scouting decision there.
Right. Or Deshaun Watson for that matter.
Yeah, and Deshaun Watson. So
yeah.
Let's move to the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, we talked about them at the beginning of the show.
Right.
I think they go defense. As a general manager perspective, I wouldn't have signed Kirk Cousins to a contract extension. I wouldn't have signed him to his original contract.
Right.
But if I was inheriting this roster with the current contracts, I would be totally going defense. My secondary has been decimated.
Yes.
My depth of my D line is gone. We have regressed tremendously now, talent-wise, on the defensive side of the ball. We have 2 first-round draft picks, fairly close, 22 and 25. I think with that, they depending on what teams do in front of them, an edge rusher may drop down to 22, maybe. But then I think they'll be able to get a secondary, at least one secondary guy, if not 2 secondary players, with the 22 and 25 pick. I think anything defensively is going to help them. Is it going to help them this year? No. They're going to be rookies. And you're going to go up against Aaron Rodgers twice at least. And
don't forget they'll go against Trubisky twice.
Well,
or Nick Foles. Ooh.
But then also Matthew Stafford. So you're going to go up against 2 quality quarterbacks 4 times. And if there's 2 rookies on that secondary, I tell you what, those guys are going to find those rookies.
Oh, hands down.
So what are your thoughts on the Vikings with their 2 first-round draft picks?
Well, and this is interesting because we were just talking about the Lions trading their 3rd pick, potentially to get other picks. Do you think, and I don't think the Vikings would do this. I don't know that they have that type of, like the GM, I don't know that he's that type of guy to trade up to that spot to try and get somebody who's a really dynamic playmaker. Like, could Minnesota say, hey, we want Jeff Okudah, let's trade up to that spot and give Detroit some more picks, and we'll take Jeff Okudah because we really want somebody in the secondary because our secondary is awful right now.
The only problem is because both their picks are in the 20s, they would take both first-round picks and probably a 3rd, maybe even a 2nd-round draft pick to move all the way up to number 3.
Do you think it would be that much?
If I'm the Lions, I'm saying that. You want me to drop 19 slots?
Sure.
For one pick? No.
Yeah.
Because you can drop down maybe to 10, 12 swap picks and probably get a 2nd and a 3rd from another team. Because there's the equation of what the everything is, the value of the trade and the points have to be there. I think the Vikings, if they wanted to do that, they're only going to get 1 player in the first round. I think it's a little too steep for them. If I'm a GM, I would say I wouldn't do it. At least jump up that far.
Right. I just get the feeling that I think that they would take a chance with 2 first-round picks like that to move either the 22nd or the 25th pick, and maybe they don't jump up to 3. And you're right, that's maybe too high. But I think maybe they could jump up 5 spots or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if they
and try to get that one defensive guy that they really want in their system, because they definitely need a playmaker.
The problem is they've lost 3 secondary players that were keys to their secondary. Not just players. They were keys to their defense.
Yeah.
So I really think they need to stay put. It may be if they can take, swap the 22nd for a pick in the teens and maybe trade, some 3rd and 4th round picks, stuff like that. But other than that, if I'm the GM, I'm not trading both my first round picks for one guy.
Sure.
Not gonna
No,
do it.
no. Yeah.
Not with the state that my defense is in right now.
Right. It's pretty bad. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the post free agent power rankings, the Vikings went from 9th to 16th.
Right.
They dropped 7 slots because of all the losses on their defensive side because their salary cap's in the disarray. So,
well, and so that's bad GMing there anyway, isn't it? I mean, there's some other things that go along with that too. It's not just the GM, but I guess I would say for Minnesota, if they do stay put, I think they have to go defense. I know a lot of people have been saying, well, Stephon Diggs left, you need another receiver, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that they address that in either one of their first 2 picks in the first round. I shouldn't say that. I think there's a high possibility that they do that, but if I'm Minnesota, I don't draft a receiver with either one of those 2 picks, and I wait until later and I pick a receiver later.
Yeah, you have to address your defense. If they don't address their defense in the first round, you're going to see people jumping off the Viking ship really, really fast. Because it's going to be a long season. They might be able to score points, but they're going to give up way more than that they score. So
and every mistake Kirk Cousins makes, people will start criticizing his $61 million that are guaranteed.
Yeah. So this brings us to the last team of the night, and we're going to go over our hour and a half. But, we're quarantined, so what else do we have to do?
Right, yeah.
What else do we have to do?
That's fun.
The Green Bay Packers.
Right.
Pick number 30. Now – couple of different things that again, their team that, again, I think Goots is in a position where I think he's doing a fairly decent job with the position he's in because he's trying to build a young, talented core of guys, but also win at the same time because he knows trying to strike lightning 3 times in a row at quarterback, probably not going to happen. If it does, that'll be unprecedented. But you're looking at this Packer team, and obviously, I still think they could use a dynamic defensive, middle linebacker.
Right.
I don't think anything's going to be there at number 30.
No, probably
they
not.
could use a tight end, which there are some tight ends that they like that are moving up the draft board quickly. But I think they could trade down, pick up a couple of picks into the early second round and still get a very good tight end in the second round. Now, here is a strange situation. Again, I'm going to call it the Rodgers effect.
Okay.
There are some very good quarterbacks available in this draft. If one of those guys slides to 30, it would not shock me if they drafted him.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Because this is a very talented quarterback class, but they're not all ready. So if one of the guys slides to 30, if I'm the GM, I almost have to take him.
I'm drafting him.
I know I need a tight end, but I can get a tight end in the second round. I can trade up in the second round, give up some of my third and fourth round draft picks that I have a load of, and get a guy. So those are kind of my scenarios, or they're kind of a wait and see how the draft unfolds in front of them type of team. But it would not shock me if somebody slides at the quarterback position if the Packers don't take him, or even if they drop, if they're still available at like say, holy cow, looking at all the teams that are in front of them, holy cow, if one gets past New England at 23 and there's a guy left, you can sit back and wait because nobody's going to be taking them because you have after New England at 23 who will probably draft a quarterback. So let's just go through this.
Sure.
Real quick. Just sort of set the stage for the Packers. So Cincinnati needs a quarterback. And this is saying everybody stays put and there's no trades. Which that's not gonna happen. Cincinnati needs a quarterback. I would say Washington needs a quarterback, but they're not going to take one. I think they're going to try to ride it out with Haskins for another year or so. Detroit doesn't need a quarterback. New York does not need a quarterback. Miami needs a quarterback at number 5.
Right.
Chargers need a quarterback at 6, but will they take one? Panthers, I don't see the Panthers taking a quarterback. You just signed Teddy Bridgewater.
Right, exactly.
Arizona doesn't need a quarterback.
Nope.
Jacksonville may or may not take one at 9. I think they need one, but they may be happy with what they have. There.
It's a hard team and situation to read.
Right.
When it comes to that. Yeah.
Cleveland, I don't think they'll take a quarterback at 10.
No. Nope.
The Jets don't need a quarterback. Raiders don't need a quarterback. San Francisco doesn't need a quarterback. Tampa Bay doesn't need Tampa Bay might take a quarterback. I don't think so. I think they're total win now because they know they only have Brady for a couple of years.
Right.
Denver.
And they may draft somebody next year. Right. They brought in Brady. They think they're going to get 2 years out of him, and they may draft somebody next year. Yeah.
Denver, I don't see Denver taking a quarterback.
Nope.
I don't see Atlanta taking quarterback. I don't see Dallas taking quarterback. They got Miami at 18 again. Then you got the Raiders at 19 again. The Jacksonville at 20 again. The Eagles at 21 who don't need a quarterback. The Vikings at 22 who don't need a quarterback. The Patriots at 23 need a quarterback.
Correct.
The Saints, they may take a guy at 24.
Sure.
May. The Vikings, again, 25, no quarterback. Dolphins, again, at 26, no quarterback. Seattle, 27, don't need a quarterback. Baltimore, 28, don't need a quarterback. Tennessee, 29, don't need a quarterback. Green Bay, number 30.
Yeah.
3 teams definitely, from number 1 to number 29, 3 teams definitely need a quarterback there. And there's about 5 or 6 guys that are first-round talent.
Right. So those if they take one guys, those if they wanted to take one teams, like Jacksonville or Tampa, like we were just talking about, if they did, then that changes the scenario. But I agree with you. I love this concept. I was thinking about it a couple of days ago. One article talked about it. It was not a whole lot has talked about it. A guy could slide to them at 30, and I agree with you. If that happens, the Packers should absolutely draft him because I think that there's a lot of talented guys there, like a Jordan Love or something like that. They're not quite there, but, man, sit behind Aaron Rodgers for a year or two and do the same thing he did.
Yeah.
2 or 3 years maybe, whatever.
It'll probably be 3 years. He'll probably be sitting for 3 years, and all of a sudden Rodgers it'll be a Brady type of thing, maybe, and Rodgers will say, I'm done.
Right.
Or you'll
say, great, here's our next guy.
Yep. Yeah. Because I'll tell you this, I'm telling you this right now. I'm still going to say it. I said it during the playoffs this year. If somehow Green Bay wins the Super Bowl before Rodgers' contract expires, he's retiring.
Yeah.
If he gets one more ring, he is done. He's done. And you have to be ready for this. It's almost like the Brett Favre situation. You just don't know how much longer he's going to go, so you have to be ready.
Yep.
And people will be all up in arms if they do it. But I'll tell you what, at least you have a plan. Now, will the guy
Yeah.
pan out? You don't know.
Sure.
But we didn't know
'Cause
Rodgers.
Boyle, let's be honest, Boyle is not your long-term solution.
No. And we didn't know Aaron Rodgers was going to be Aaron Rodgers, when we drafted him. There was talk he was the number one pick and they dropped whatever, this or that. But we didn't know he was going to be as good as he was.
I think it's one of those things where you look at it and you say, this guy has talent and he could flourish, as opposed to, you pick a guy in the 4th round or something, you don't really know, what you're going to get. But yeah, you have the guy that has a lot of talent and potential, and then you give him the opportunity to sit and learn before he has to be the guy. Man, I just think that's great. If you can do something like that, and you have that luxury to do that in the NFL.
Yeah, if you can draft a guy and let him sit a few years, you're going to be in such a better situation than having the guy come in as a rookie and have to start. And if I'll tell you right now, and like I said, so there'll be people out there ripping guts apart for doing it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, and when Rodgers decides to retire and they have their guy, and all
those people won't be ripping.
All of a sudden, that guy turns out to be even a quality starting quarterback. They're going to be like, good pick. And then it's like, that's not what you were saying when he was drafted.
Right. And he doesn't have to be a world beater or a Hall of Famer. He just has to be a good player.
No, exactly. He just has to be one of those guys that can be a viable quarterback in the NFL. He doesn't have to be a world beater. If he turns out to be one, great.
Yep.
But again, it doesn't always lightning striking 3 times in a row.
Probably
would be unbelievable. Now, and again, too, it all depends on who drops down. If for some reason like Tua would drop down, I would take him, or Jalen Hurts. If I could trade up maybe in the 2nd round to get a Jalen Hurts, maybe.
Sure.
I'm not a big fan of those types of quarterbacks. I understand, with Lamar Jackson, I get that. I'm a traditionalist. I want the guy that can stand in the quarterback, throw darts, and if he has to, roll out
can run.
And scramble. I don't like the guys that as soon as the pocket breaks down, boom, he's running. I don't like that. They don't have long careers.
I don't think it's sustainable. It's great for a year, 2, maybe, that they really can do that. I think the example I would use is the best scrambling quarterback, in my opinion, and people are going to disagree because they're going to say Lamar Jackson, blah, blah, blah. But the guy I look at is Russell Wilson. That guy knows when to run, and he's so good at it. And he doesn't overdo it. He turned himself into a pocket passer first and a runner second, and he's a great scrambler. Lamar Jackson, like we had talked about, he had an awesome year, but you got to sustain it, to prove that. I mean, if he comes out and he does it year after year, okay, fine, you proved it, but we don't know that yet. And I agree. I'm not a fan of that type of quarterback either, because you take a couple of hits and then that style is done.
Right. Yeah. So again, we will wait and see when we do our mock draft. Be interesting to see what we decide to do with the good old.
Gotta make a decision on it.
Green and gold.
Yep.
So again, we have gone well over our time tonight.
Yeah, tonight we went a little longer.
But we got through 2 divisions. Depending on what happens in this next week, we might be able to get through the next few divisions and then start preparing for our mock draft. Again, if you're just coming in, we're wrapping up our show. Feel free to listen to it. It'll hopefully be posted tomorrow. If not, it'll be over on YouTube. Posted there. All our shows
have been Facebook posted as there. Well, and then it'll go to YouTube. Yep.
Links will be on Facebook also. again, thank you everybody for listening and checking out our show. Again, we're going to try to keep people at least entertained with as much sports talk as we can with the current situation going on with everything. So thank you, everybody. Have a good week. Stay safe, and we will talk to everybody next week. Thank you.
Sounds
Have a
good.
good night.
Night.